Liverpool Fan in Japan.
Hello YouTube, Liverpool Fan in Japan here, the Miyazaki Man Si, and I'm delighted to be joined by the host of Anfield Agenda, Craig. How are we today?
I'm brilliant, thank you, Si. How are you?
Yeah, no, very good, very good. I'm so glad. Like this, Liverpool FC, the global appeal, this is how we unite fans worldwide, right? This is basically the ultimate joy. You create content in the club that you're passionate about, and you have so much variety on your channel. Which type of content gives you the most joy? Is it transfers? Is it strategy? Is it the season coming, pre-season? What are you really enjoying making at the moment?
It's watch-alongs. It's always watch-alongs because that's where I go to the full range of emotions. I'm quite a down-to-earth, calm, composed fella at the best of times, but when we're in action, something clicks. Something clinks, Si, and I'm just not that same guy. I get really worked up, really angry, swear way too much. It's definitely the watch-alongs for me. How about yourself?
Yep, no, absolutely. The live watch alongs are really engaged, right? You're hooked every single moment on the pitch. Something happens, all the emotions. You go roller coaster ride, right? The peaks and the troughs. You go through a whole range of emotions. But for me, particularly as well, with Arne Slot coming in, it's the tactical side of things. I really enjoy seeing the little nuances about what he's going to do with certain players. And like in particular, can he find a role for Dominic Szoboszlai to really unleash him? Can he get Nunez into the right positions to score the goals? Can he get Harvey Elliott, as a prominent player week in, week out? It's those kind of little things that I'm really looking to see in the season. What are your expectations of Slot? Will he hit the ground running, or do you think he'll take some time to get used to the pace and ebb and flow of the Premier League?
I'm hoping he hits the ground running. I mean, The Athletic did a really good piece covering the first 5 games for every team in the Premier League and listing them in order of difficulty. And according to The Athletic and the numbers, Liverpool have the easiest opening games of any Premier League side. So I would hope that we could get off to a fast start. I like the little glimpses that I got to see in the Preston game, the highlights that came out. There was some really sharp movement. And as you said, it will be interesting to see the similarities and the differences between the way Arne Slot and Jurgen Klopp, of course, set their teams up. One of the reasons that Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards picked Arne Slot was because there was enough similarities with Jurgen that it wouldn't be a massive upheaval, but still enough little tactical tweaks, like you've said, to make it interesting.
Absolutely. I think one of the key milestones that I'm particularly looking forward to, and all the Liverpool fans in Japan are looking forward to as well, is the battle between the Dutch managers, right? So Ten Hag and Arne Slot. The media are absolutely going to go ballistic over it every single moment. Who's going to one-up each other? It's the bragging rights in the background. That is going to be the pivotal game, isn't it? The Man United game. And if we can get the bragging rights there, I think that'll set us up for a good season.
Last season, it was the game where we drew with them at Anfield, was the one that I lost my mind the most in. I couldn't comprehend how we couldn't beat this very poor Manchester United team. And you're right, the dynamic, because there's been a little bit of undermining of Slot's achievements from Ten Hag on some occasions, speaking about PSV Eindhoven as an example, playing the best football in the Eredivisie. And I think Arne Slot will want to set a new tone for how successful Dutch managers can be at the top clubs. Obviously, Louis van Gaal, who did it at the very highest level. But other than that, it's been a while, and I think Arne Slot is the right guy. I'm actually honoured he chose us. I know that sounds crazy, Si, but he had offers from Spurs. He had offers to come to the Premier League previously, and he waited, and Liverpool felt like the right move, and I'm really excited by him. How about you?
No, absolutely. He seems like the right type of fit for the Liverpool persona, right? He speaks really well. And one difference is Klopp is very passionate. He's more like the kind of father figure, right? Everyone looks up and respects him. Whereas Arne Slot, he talks through his explanations tactically to the media as well, his explanations and reasonings for doing things. And I think on the pitch, one of the key things I'm going to be very keen to see is I think he's probably more hands-on than Klopp, right? He'll shift the shape, he'll shift the tactics, he'll move the players into position if he sees something isn't working, whereas Klopp's probably drilled a way of playing for that game and he gives them time, maybe 65 minutes before he makes that change, right? I'm thinking that Slot's probably going to be more hands-on, more proactive, and I think that really fits the Dutch philosophy of kind of total football as well. Liverpool have so many versatile players, like players that can play multiple positions. Obviously, McAllister can play in lots of positions. Cody Gakpo probably from the left, but he can play up front as well. It's going to be interesting to see how he kind of adjusts it on the fly. When you look at Jurgen Klopp's team and Arne Slot's team, what do you think will be the main difference from the playing style and what you see week in, week out?
Before I touch on the playing style, I just want to go back to what you said about those substitutions and the timings. So Ruben Peters is almost like a bit of a god to Arne Slot. When he said, no more pushing the players past this point, players need to come off at this point, he's taken very seriously. If you look at Feyenoord's injury record, they were above 90% availability for
It's
players.
fantastic.
It is a really outstanding thing. So if we can limit the injuries and the games missed, I think we're in a really strong position. Last season, we had the second highest amount of injuries in the league. I think we were just behind. I think Newcastle maybe topped it. But
It did, yeah.
the similarities that I'm looking for is the counter pressing. Obviously, the winning possession back high up the field. The differences, I think, will be in the way that we build up to attack. We were a lot more direct under Jurgen Klopp. I'm expecting more of a Pep Guardiola-like build-up of play through the lines under Arne Slot. A bit more patient and a bit more commanding in possession. Obviously, the more time you've got the ball, the more work your opposition have to do to win it back. The harder they become, and the less likely you are to make a mistake and give away a goal then.
Indeed, indeed. And I think there's 2 points that's really, really interesting. So imagine if we had a Thiago Alcantara or Joel Matip, available for the whole season, the attributes they offer, Matip's ability to waltz through the midfield, those long legs, splitting the sea, really getting us up there, lay it off and right, attacking with an extra man in final third. Thiago Alcantara passing through the lines from deep position, right? I guess that's why we played at McAllister sometimes in six, try to beat the press, pass through the lines, get us onto the front foot. But with those players now out, Thiago out and Joel Matip out, there's now an opportunity to kind of stake your claim in the squad, right? We have Jarell Quansah coming to prominence. The youngsters are trying to make an impact. We actually have a lot of midfielders. Where would you say is the one area that you're slightly concerned about into the coming season? If we don't strengthen, we may be slightly undercooked.
The very area you're speaking about, I think defensive midfield. The defense can only do too much, and I like what Jurgen used to say when it gets to the point where it's at defenders or goalkeepers. We've made mistakes all throughout the pitch to allow it to get to that point. We've missed the counter press up top. We've missed it in midfield. I think if we can bring in somebody who is a Javier Mascherano type midfielder who just wins the ball, is combative, and give it to the likes of Alexis, give it to the likes of Dominic Szoboszlai, and let them make the magic happen. I think that's one area. Centre back is an obvious other area. I mean, today I'm just seeing that Houlden from Juventus is going
Oh,
to
yes.
Bournemouth for a really reasonable fee. We've missed out on Lenny Yoro, obviously. I was speaking with David Lynch yesterday, and really interestingly, he said to me that one of the traits that Liverpool look for in a centre back is real aerial prowess because of the high line that we play. I never really gave that much consideration before, I have to admit, but that's one of the reasons he doesn't believe Mark Gay from Crystal Palace is likely, as an example. So those are the two areas for me, defensive midfield and centre-back.
Indeed, indeed. I'd go along with that as well. So Mark Gay and Ignacio as well, they're not dominant in the air, right? It'd probably be more of a Diomande or someone like that who's absolute,
That's exactly who David was talking about initially. He said we were interested in Diomande from Sporting for exactly, as you said, his aerial prowess.
And that's a really interesting trait as well, because when we look, I know a lot of fans have been caught up in the opportunistic word that Richard Hughes was intimating as well. But opportunistic has various meanings, right? So, for example, when Upamecano was all the rage, we went for Ibu Konate because we spotted the opportunity there, a gem that could really thrive in the Premier League with his physical attributes. Now, obviously injury notes and all that kind of thing, but he is a formidable, force to be reckoned with, and he covers for Trent pretty well. When we look at defensive midfielders, I think the profile for me is very, very interesting because you mentioned Javier Mascherano. He goes around and hounds the opposition. He presses them high. He wins the ball and keeps it simple. We have Wataru Endo, who at the moment is a ball winner in the biggest games and will lay it off to someone simple. The ball pace might not be, absolutely exquisite, but he does the job, does the simple jobs and turns up in big games. Would you prefer the more of a destroyer, a roaming destroyer, so Chouameni and Camavinga, or a more of a deep-lying playmaker like a Xavi Alonso who takes the ball off the back line and distributes it and has defensive responsibility as well? Or are you looking for a kind of anchor man, a physical specimen that sits in front of the defense and plays the ball around? There's so many different types of players you can put in that sixth position. What would be your preference for the sixth signing?
It's really difficult to answer when we haven't really seen what an Arne Slot team looks like yet. So we don't know if we're going to go with a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 or some combination or variation. I've got one name that I've been banging the drum for all summer, and that's Ederson from
Oh, yes.
Atalanta. He's
Indeed.
really impressed me. He covers everything, box to box, defensively. He's just such a good player, and a 40 to 45 million pound right price point, about to become an established Brazilian international. I just think he would tick the boxes for me. That's the one that I'd be looking to do. But in answer to your question, I would say a destroyer. If I had to pick
Yep.
one, I'd say a destroyer because we've got enough talented ball carriers, passers. I like the days where we had a Momo Sissoko back there in midfield, or we had a big warrior like Fabinho. Fabinho
Yeah,
was perfect. I used to call him the Brazilian octopus because he was everywhere. Everywhere. His tentacles were getting balls and reaching
long
that he'd
legs.
no right to do. That's what we need to do. Let the brilliant players, the talented players do the magic stuff, but we need somebody there to shield the defence. And you were absolutely spot on about Endo. He's been magnificent at that. I think maybe the pace and playing 10, 15 yards higher up the pitch has taken
Hmm.
him a bit of a while to get used to, but he's been a great addition.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I don't even think Liverpool has seen his versatility because he actually started as a centre back. He roamed into the fullback positions and then he played slightly as a playmaker before he's found his way back into the bottom of the diamond in the six, in the double pivot as well. And, becoming the enforcer. He was the number one rated in duels, I think, in the Bundesliga. So his metrics were really, really high. And I think that's another opportunistic one because in the absence of Caicedo and Lavia, and I'm still hoping we've banked that money, right? We've got that money somewhere for this transfer window.
I think we do.
Ederson. Yep. No, I'm sure we do. I think Ederson profiles very well next to Caicedo. He's a similar sort of player that's well-rounded, versatile, athletic, can play a bit of ball, but he's a good ball winner as well. And Atalanta's run to the Europa League victory against Bayer Leverkusen was built on the fact that Coop Miners and Ederson were just absolutely dominating midfields.
Absolutely. And another thing I would say there about Ederson is his value is pretty fair, in my opinion, if you're looking at about £40 million. And we know that Liverpool like to have a certain age profile. They want players to have somewhere between 120 and 150 top flight games. They need to look at them in different variations. We were up close and personal with Ederson a couple of occasions last season, and he stood out for me. And I didn't know anything about him, in all honesty, before we really started to zone in on needing a
Yeah.
defensive midfielder and who that might be. But those two games and the final against Leverkusen left me in no doubt that he is ready for a move to a top club.
Agree. In Brazil, I think they already highlighted, I think Douglas Luiz and Bruno Guimaraes and Ederson would be the kind of future of their midfield. Very versatile, very tactically aware, very able to do multiple facets of the midfield. And I think Liverpool as well have a lot of the players who can do many of the facets of midfield. Szoboszlai is defensively responsible, covering for Trent. Curtis Jones is a total baller. You could deploy him anywhere. But I'd like to see Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott kind of get a more defined role because Curtis Jones has kind of been molded into that Gini Wijnaldum, safe pair of legs. He'll move the ball, pass and move. But he really has a dribbling streak in him, a good shot in him. Harvey Elliott's really made an impact in the Premier League. He comes on, he gets the assist, he drives at the opposition, he gets the goals. Where would you like to see kind of Arne Slot deploy Harvey Elliott, even Fabio Carvalho, Curtis Jones? How would you like to see them used?
I'd like to see Curtis Jones utilised on the bench because I don't rate him. In all honesty, I don't. I think he's capable of wonderful things and he had a really good purple patch, but consistency and availability have been a problem with him because of an ongoing
Random injuries.
injury. And I think, if I'm being really honest, if he wasn't Scouse, I don't think he'd still be at the club. I've got to be honest about that. I don't rate him all that highly. Harvey Elliott, I'm a huge fan of Harvey.
Good lad.
So
as
much
well.
so I named my French bulldog after Harvey Elliott. I love him. I really do. I love his work rate. I love his energy. And I love that Jurgen said one of his regrets was that he didn't get to play him enough.
Yeah.
Because Harvey Elliott, to me, is so versatile. I think he'll work wonders in a number 10 in the slot system. Carvalho is going to be really interesting because we've not really had a chance to see too much of him. He's had a mixed spell on loan. Didn't work out too well at Leipzig. Had a good spell at Hull at the end of last season with Tyler Morton as well. And I'm excited. I think he deserves to be looked at by Arne Slot, who I believe wanted him at Feyenoord, if I'm not mistaken. So there will be a fondness there, and he'll get his opportunity to shine. I think that's all he could really ask for in this situation is fresh start, new manager, and then it's over to him to prove himself.
Indeed, yeah, I'd go along with that. I'm personally of the opinion that Curtis Jones is a good player in the squad to rotate because obviously he can fulfill the functions in midfield. He doesn't lose the ball, but he does hold on to the ball somewhat too long at times as well. But I think under the right manager and right setup, players have a chance to evolve and add attributes to the game, especially when they're young as well. And I kind of think with Darwin Nunez, he gets caught offside because we don't play the ball quick enough to him. And one of the reasons why we don't play the ball quick enough to him is because there's not a player near enough to him, right? In that 4-3-3 formation with two inside forwards, you're relying on the two forward wing players to get closer to him and cut in that space. But obviously, it's very congested in that kind of area. If Arne Slot, who actually was an attacking midfielder, playmaker back in the day when he played as well, he can find a system.
It's crazy to think, by the way, he played against Virgil.
Yeah, that's right. No, that is right. Yep. And apparently he's scored some crackers as well, and he's done really, really good tackles and through balls. And I saw in training as well, when the ball comes to his feet, he's telling the players, move your body shape here, maneuver the ball there, and I want you to play the ball straight away. That's the kind of ball that Darwin Nunez thrives on. But in our squad at the moment, would you be convinced that there's any player that can fulfill that role, or is that something we have to go to the transfer window for? Someone who can receive the ball and on a whim slide Darwin Nunez in, without needing to look. They just know, like a Kaká or something like that.
Absolutely. I think one thing we are blessed with is some great passers of the ball. I think Szoboszlai could absolutely fulfill what you've spoken about. I think Harvey Elliott has an eye for a pass. Looking through the rest of the midfield, I mean, Trent, we haven't even spoken about Trent yet. Trent can do it from any angle, any area of the pitch. I think with Darwin, he thrives in space. And when I watch him play for Uruguay, he has a lot more space to run into. When we're playing against a low block in the Premier League, it can be very difficult to find the space for him to operate in. And he's not really a centre forward you're putting in crosses from to aerially win. He thrives on that space, playing on the shoulder, as you've said. And I wish that he would just give himself half a yard, because he's so much pace. He's going to outsprint any defender. He doesn't need to be as high on the shoulder as he is. But I do think you've made a really good point. It's about building those relationships and knowing, without even looking, where Darwin's going to be, what that movement's going to be. And that's going to be really exciting, because if he can connect it, put it all together, wow, what a player. I mean, 30, 35 goals will be no problem if he can figure it out. And I think he will. I think we're going to see the best of him this season.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think he's going to be the main man up front, because it's probably between him and Diogo Jota vying for that central striking position, with Cody Gakpo, Lucho Diaz on the left, and Mo Salah, potentially Harvey Elliott, potentially Szoboszlai on the right-hand side. But speaking of the right-hand side, the battle between Trent Alexander-Arnold and Conor Bradley, who came to big prominence, right? The classic fullback in Conor Bradley, who can take the ball on a run, charge at the opposition, ends up in the opposition box many more times than any other right-back than I can think of in the last few seasons. What would you take between this battle? Who starts the season? Is it a case of game-by-game basis, or is it seniority? Trent has to play.
It's so difficult because, as you've rightly pointed out, they both have amazing attributes. They can both play the role well, but in very different ways.
Yeah.
Trent, drifting infield, undoubtedly leaves space that is exploited by opposition teams. Whereas Bradley, think of him more as a wing-back. He still has the engine to get up and down that right-hand side. I don't know if Trent has the desire to get back as much as Conor Bradley. So I don't believe I'm going to say this, but I would start the season with Conor Bradley.
Indeed, yeah.
And I feel so dirty
that will
saying
have
that.
media headlines written all over it, right?
I feel so dirty saying that, because I'm a huge admirer of Trent's attributes, but I still don't know what he is. Is he a midfielder? Is he a right back? I don't know. I'd like that defined from Arne Slot before we give out a £300,000 a week contract, because I do want him to stay. I just don't know what the manager's thinking is going to be. But I'll tell you one thing. If it's right back, what a collection of right backs to have at Arne Slot's disposal. And then, of course, we've young Calvin Ramsey, who's going to go out on loan. But wow, Conor Bradley and Trent. I remember when we had Kleiny at right back, and I remember thinking to myself when Trent was coming through, is he really going to be able to take the position away from Nathaniel Klein, established England international? Boy, how wrong was I there? And I thought the same with Bradley. I love him. I think he's brilliant. So it might be a case of, like you've alluded to, horses for courses, depending on the opposition. Do we need to break them down? Is there going to be space for Trent to exploit? It's interesting, but it's a great set of options for Arne Slot to have.
Absolutely. No, I'd go along with that. And I think as you mentioned, horses for courses, I think it's the type of players and the attributes that they bring. So Kleiny was a great one-on-one defender. We specifically brought him back against Man United to defend against fast wingers. We were blessed with Steve Finnan crossing from both sides, left foot and right foot. Glenn Johnson, an attacking threat. I remember the winner against Chelsea, cut inside, left foot, bent it in as well. I think Arne Slot will have a keen idea on the attributes of the type of player that he wants to bring in for the system. And I kind of intimated previously in videos that I think Mo Salah is going to be more of an inside roaming playmaker as opposed to an out-and-out winger. Now, if we want to stay with that system, I talked about it in the Takefusa Kubo video previously, that he drifts inside and he playmakes, and he has that little elements of Luis Garcia popping up with goals and bits of magic to unlock a defense. Would you go along with a right-sided player who can join in the play, link up, and try to slide Darwin Nunez in? Or would you prefer the more old-school traditional winger, like a Bakayoko, or someone who can beat the man on the outside, and someone who's got the skills and dribbling and pace and power?
So I'm a little bit old-fashioned in this regard. Nothing excites me more than a young, pacey winger who petrifies a fullback, just runs at him and scares the life out of him. The modern trend is to play into the half spaces, to have inverted forwards. I remember seeing Jesse Marsh speaking about this in a really eloquent way, describing the percentage of crosses that lead to goals is far higher in the half spaces than in the old fashioned outside the edge of the box crossing. So
Hmm.
I can see where the modern trend is, but still, I think if you usher everybody inside, eventually you're running into other people's spaces and it becomes too congested. So somebody who could do a little bit of both would be ideal. I don't know all that much about Kubo, to be honest, because I haven't really watched enough of Sociedad. Ironically, I've probably seen more of him at Mallorca than I did at
Oh.
Sociedad, but a young pacey winger would definitely be what I would like. Whether that is a Bakayoko or whether there's somebody who cuts inside, I don't mind. I just want to see the fear in the whites of the eyes of defenders.
Yep, no, I hear you. And actually, based on that as well, I remember reading in some books, Xavi Alonso's favorite player was Juan Carlos Valeron at Deportivo, and the reason why he rated him so highly compared to other players, because there were loads of good players in that generation, was because he just had the ability to pull the strings and put the players in the right places, even off the bench. He's like the center of the universe. Everything gravitates around him, and I think for Liverpool, it's kind of Alexis McAllister, right? When the ball comes to Alexis McAllister, you expect things to happen. He'll put the ball in the right place, he'll cross into the right area, he'll run into the right places, he'll make things happen as well. Do you think Alexis McAllister will be the most prominent kind of playmaker, the one we look to basically dictate our whole play? Or do you think it'll be more of a balanced system and there's other players that will come to fore? Harvey Elliott, I'm thinking of. Obviously, Mo Salah will get the ball. Mo Salah didn't get the ball enough last season because he was playing way too wide. I think he will be involved more this season. What do you think around the kind of strategy and the focus and how we get the ball rotated in this Arne Slot Liverpool team?
So Alexis McAllister is going to be, in my opinion, our Luka Modric. I can't speak highly enough of how much I adore watching his intelligence on a football pitch. Thinking about players over the years that if I could reclone somebody to drop it in, I've always been a massive fan of David Silva. I think
Love
he's
David
one
Silva.
of the greatest players that's ever graced the Premier League. No matter where he was on a pitch, he found half a yard of space. He found a
Absolutely.
pocket. And I think Harvey Elliott can do that. Him, Alexis McAllister. I think Alexis McAllister is going to be the driving force in our team. He's intelligent. He's got that South American fiery mentality. He's not afraid to get into the box and score. I love him. I think we're going to look back on this signing and feel like we absolutely pulled Brighton's pants down with the price because of the release clause. I can't speak highly enough of him, and I agree with everything you've said about him. He is going to be that guy for us. He's incredible. Him and Harvey Elliott. I'm expecting a really big season from Harvey.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that you mentioned the release clause as well, because that's another meaning of opportunistic, right? Liverpool had the chance for Dominic Szoboszlai. A release clause was expiring last season. Newcastle put in a bid, put inquiries in. Liverpool pulled the trigger. I think we had to get a loan or something to do it, but opportunistic release clause. Dominic Szoboszlai is in. McAllister, we knew about the release clause apparently before any other club. They didn't find out about it. We put the feelers in. McAllister was convinced. On he comes as well. I think Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards, having been brought in for the infrastructure and for this particular window, there's a lot of Liverpool fans I sense that are getting frustrated by the lack of transfer activity. But to me, it wouldn't make much sense to bring in, these head honchos, these absolute stars in the global world in recruitment, in infrastructure, in building a club, and not do anything. Would you be, of that kind of vein as well, that we will have a flurry of activity come August, possibly, because these guys are in and they want to make an impact and give Slot the tools to do the job?
I hope so, because I'm one of the impatient people, unfortunately. I have every faith in Michael Edwards, in Richard Hughes, Dave Fallows, Barry Hunter, Will Spearman, the rest of the recruitment team. I just don't have much faith in the owners. That's my personal problem, is I don't believe that they're always willing to go as far as needs to be to get it done. Now, to go back to what you're saying about the genius of Edwards, it kind of reminds me of the Takumi Minamino deal.
Oh, yeah,
Manchester United were willing to pay £25 million because they didn't know about the release clause
clause,
in
yeah.
Takumi Minamino's Salzburg contract that we knew about because of Michael Edwards. Michael Edwards said in an interview with Jamie Carragher that it's all about relationships. That's all this transfer business is about. It's those relationships. And I think he has a network and a little black book
Yes.
that many would envy. So I've every faith that he will bring in the right players. And that's why when the links to to Kubo came up, as much as I don't think there is credibility to them, it's the type of left field name that you would expect from a Michael Edwards. Somebody who maybe the underlying data shows something that the eye is missing. Remember the Mohamed Salah signing? It was all about Julian Brandt. Jurgen wanted him. But everybody, Michael Edwards was just pushing and probing, saying, no, this is the guy. Mohamed's the guy. And he was right. So I have every faith in him, in Richard Hughes. I did extensive research on Richard Hughes when he came in. Very impressive guy. Really great contacts in Italy. He grew up there. His father worked for Penguin Publishing over there. Incredible. I think we have the best collection of executives of any football club at the minute.
Agreed.
It's just about making sure that we don't go from £150 million Caicedo to a 20 million alternative, regardless of whether that player's good enough or not. Sometimes it's nice to make a bit of a statement.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. And this is very interesting around the FSG debate, because this is something that riles up fans a lot. And there's obviously, a lot of direct criticism, Twitter and whatnot. So with a new kind of structure in mind, Michael Edwards, head of global football here, it seems to me that the chain of command has changed slightly. So FSG would probably authorize the overall budget, right? This is what the maximum we can afford. They will have to crunch the numbers. They know financial fair play. This is the numbers. And then it'd be up to Richard Hughes to identify the targets Arne Slot wants for his system, along with the chief of scouts and all, the whole scouting team. It'd probably be Michael Edwards now signing off, right, against any potential transfer. So he would have to deem it viable, as in taking a percentage of the transfer and wages out. Arne Slot will obviously have his priorities for positions as well, for the attributes that he wants. How much influence do you think this new infrastructure has, and how much does it take away from what FSG probably used to be doing, right? Because they'd have more of a direct hand in involvement. So I think FSG would probably just be dictating to Michael Edwards, this is the total amount you've got to play with. Go nuts. Go play with Richard Hughes and Julian Ward and Arne Slot and decide on your tools for this season. Would you think that it takes FSG out of the firing line now that they've got this infrastructure in place?
So from speaking to journalists and people who run in and around the club, what I can gather is that Michael Edwards is involved this summer because we're still in a settling in period. But ultimately, those day-to-day decisions will come down to Richard Hughes on player signings.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is we don't really have a budget. We've never been a club that goes out under these owners with a budget. Every player is talked about on an individual basis. Is there value in there for the club? Is there potential to increase the productivity of the player? And all of these other little factors. And then the money is almost an afterthought. Apparently the money is there, but they just want to be really, really sure on the players. Hence the reason they were willing to move for Caicedo at such a large fee, which kind of shocked us all, let's be honest. To sit here and think we were about to spend 115 million is crazy. The reason I think that the split in the fan base is there is because, like I've said, the alternative always seems to be a sticking plaster or a far less financially overbearing sum. So look at other deals that we haven't pulled off before. Jurgen said for an entire summer we didn't need a midfielder until we brought in Arthur Melo, which everybody knew wasn't going to work from day one. So I think at the moment, yes, Michael Edwards is still there, but ultimately I think he's going to take the place of the likes of a Mike Gordon. He's going to be there, but in the background, keeping an eye on all of FSG's footballing project when they eventually add some more clubs. But Richard Hughes will be that guy. Michael Edwards really, really respects Richard Hughes. They started together. They worked in data analytics at Bournemouth when Richard Hughes was still a player. He was buying into what Michael Edwards was trying to introduce. Yeah. Lots of the Bournemouth players back then were shrugging their shoulders and thinking it was all a bit too hipster for their liking. But Michael Edwards bought into it with Richard Hughes. Richard Hughes and him stayed in contact. And again, as soon as Richard Hughes came into the club, he said, I'm only here because Michael Edwards.
Absolutely. That's the reason Julian Ward
that
came back as well, right?
relationship is strong. The trust is there. So I believe eventually we'll see Richard Hughes take the control day-to-day on all transfers and everything money related at the club.
Absolutely. And do you think then, when Jurgen Klopp intimated that the club didn't need a midfielder, it's because we missed out on Aurelien Tchouameni, and Klopp is the type that says, I've identified a player that can really help this team for now, next best alternative, second tier, doesn't quite impact in the same way. I'd rather save the money for a big signing, get your Alisson Becker, get your Van Dijk in which case if none's available or we couldn't get them this season, he's willing to wait. How much would that be down to Klopp's insistence on the right player as opposed to Liverpool not pulling the plug on an additional midfielder until last minute determined Arthur Melo had to come in?
I think the fairest way to look at that is last summer. I look at last summer's transfer business and I go through with it. Some of them very good signings, some questionable. And I ask myself, would Edwards have signed these players? And there's some of them I don't think Edwards would have signed because I think he would have thought we were overpaying. I think, and of course, none of us have any proof of this. It does
Yeah.
feel to me like there was a power dynamic struggle between Michael Edwards and Jurgen Klopp behind the club. It doesn't mean they weren't respectful. It doesn't mean they didn't appreciate each other's brilliance because they are both incredibly impressive men. But I do think that it's not an accident that Michael Edwards has come back in when Jurgen has left. He was very stubborn, Jurgen. We spoke about substitution timings as an example. And I guess you've got to be that stubborn. You've got to believe in your project and what you're doing to get to the
Yeah.
level that Jurgen's gotten to in life. You've got to trust your instincts. I just feel there were some times where he was a little bit too stubborn for his good. And it reminded me of sometimes of Arsene Wenger at Arsenal when people could see what was needed, but he just wasn't willing to admit to it and just was sticking to his philosophy. So I think everything has happened for the best. I'm glad Jurgen left the way he did. He deserves
Yep,
to
with
go
dignity.
with that send off. You could never fire a man like Jurgen. So for it to be his decision, him to move off, I think the exchange from one regime to the next is one thing I will give FSC a lot of credit for. They've been very good about putting the brain trust in place and putting good people in good positions. My only real qualm with them has been the Super League, and I find them cheap. But apart from that, they've done a lot of good things at the club.
Yeah, no, spot on. Good to hear. I do think sometimes they lack the credit for the success that we have gained in recent seasons gone by, because obviously we weren't the consistent trophy hunting machine prior to Klopp. But when Klopp came in, we were at least competing for, right? If a goal here or match there or decision or PGMOL or whatever went our way, then we'd be talking a whole different story. But at the same time, it's kind of the Liverpool way, isn't it? Every win that we do means a lot more. That Carling Cup, the EFL Cup win that we got with the kids and the youngsters, Jurgen said that was his favourite cup win, despite winning the Premier League, despite winning Champions League, because of the fact that the kids came on, showed their character, showed they had something about them. And I think the trust and emphasis on youth from Arne Slot as well puts us in good stead, because we do have a lot of talent coming off the conveyor belt from the academy, training with the first team. Who do you think is going to be the breakout star of the youngsters this season? Because Jarrell Quansah, Connor Bradley came to prominence last season. Even Queeb Kelleher showed what he's made of. Who do you think will be the surprise name of this season that the fans aren't expecting?
Well, first, just want to go back for a little second to FSG. Yes, they've done lots of great stuff since they've come into the club, but the real problem I have is when we did win those trophies, the Premier League, European Cup, we didn't
Building.
exactly go out and strengthen. We didn't go out and strike fear into everybody to say, we're building a dynasty here. We're going to win this trophy for the next 3 or 4 years. Arsenal are signing Calafiori after having the best defence in the Premier League last season. And the reason they were given any interview that I'd seen on Sky Sports or anywhere else was, we want to strengthen from a position of strength. And that's where I feel FSG have fallen away. Now, the youngsters, you are right. What a conveyor belt of talent, whether you're talking about trainee only, who's coming through, looks incredible. I think this season for me, two people that I think are going to have big campaigns are Ben Doak, who had an awful time with injuries last year. He looked really sharp against Preston. I'm also going to say Bobby Clark, who's going to stay at the club. There was talk he might go out on loan, but I think he's incredible. I think he is a phenomenally good footballer. It'll be interesting to see how much football trainee only might get at such a tender age. And of course, we haven't even spoken about Real Nyamoha, the young kid who's going to come in from Chelsea. Wow, what a talent. He strikes me as kind of Raheem Sterling level, as you knew that Raheem Sterling from 15 was going to be a superstar in the first team. You knew he was
International.
going to make it. Real Nyamoha looks a very similar player. So lots of them, as you've said. My problem is just that little 2-year transition period. One or two senior pros to help these young players come in would be greatly appreciated. But I will agree with you 100%, Si. The conveyor belt of talent that we've put together, the underage systems, is quite incredible.
Agreed. And one name that gets forgotten often is Stefan Bajcetic, right? Because Stefan Bajcetic, we talked about the attributes of a midfielder at number 6. Are you a mobile destroyer? Are you a physical specimen? Can you pass through the line? Can you take the ball under pressure? Bajcetic is so well-rounded. It's only every so often that player comes around like a Busquets or like a Rodri, right? That they can do all facets of what you really want that player in the holding position to do and even go forward. And he's got a little bit of cheekiness and cockiness around him. And I know people are like, don't put your hopes on Bajcetic for the coming season. He's coming off an injury. Can he overcome those growth spurts, get his rhythm again? But when he really, for me, is a generational package of a talent in the way that he can do so many things. He's got so many attributes. And it was obvious to me that Alisson and the other players passed him the ball under pressure again and again because they trusted him to break that press and do something with it. I'm really, really looking forward to the minutes he's going to get. For me, he's going to be my standout young player, probably.
The interesting thing about Stefan is he was the last player legally that Liverpool were able to sign under the age of 18 because
Correct,
of
Celta Vigo,
Brexit,
yeah.
basically. And to get him from Celta Vigo for €300,000, when we look back on this, if we do a video together in 2 or 3 years' time and we talk back about €300,000 as a signing fee for this player, it's going to seem incredibly silly
Still,
and low. He is phenomenal. He comes from a very good grounding as well from his father, who's always been there with him, a steady hand to guide him. He doesn't seem like a bit of a big time Charlie or anything. I'm excited by him. You are right to say measure expectations, because a full year out is still a full year out
yeah.
for anybody. So reintroducing him in gradually, but what a talent. So exciting.
Absolutely. And actually, I really like the look of Cade Gordon as well before he got injured. You know, he would have been competing for that backup slot with Ben Doak, right? Different attributes, different style of player. But we're really well versed. If you were to do like a youth player entering the first team, Liverpool give the opportunities to the youngsters to come in, which is probably why we signed Rio, right, from Chelsea, because he can see the pathway to the front team. But Jayden Danns apparently has really impressed on his commitment to improving his game and improving his level week in, week out. The only thing that I would say about this Liverpool squad is we probably don't have that sub player who is used to playing from the bench, coming on and making an impact, right? So Divock Origi was our cult hero. We had Chicharito in the Premier League. We had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We had Davy Fairclough at Liverpool as well. Players that know they're maybe not first string, but will always make an impact coming off the bench. Do you think Liverpool have that backup option behind the first line? Because it's kind of the squad that wins you the major prizes, right? That reliable head off the bench that can either see at home, sneak a goal in, win decisive fouls in the final area, you know, wind the clock down, that kind of thing.
I would say Diogo Jota is that guy.
Yeah,
Now, his injury record is, of course, concerning, but I always feel comfortable with seeing him come on with 20 to go because he's so intelligent. Whether he wins
clinical as
you a
well.
free kick on the edge of the penalty area or he pops up with a goal, he scores a crazy amount of headed goals, by the way, for somebody as small in stature as he is. But I think he would be that guy. Dan's, as you've mentioned, the reason I didn't bring him in for this season is because I think he'll go on loan.
Yeah, I heard
There's
that.
been lots of talk about Wayne Rooney wanting him to go on loan over to Plymouth Argyle, as an example. And Jayden Danns, look, you mentioned Rion Yamoha. The reason that it's been touted that he decided to come to Liverpool was that Carling Cup final, or excuse me, League Cup final, where he's seen Liverpool's players out on that pitch. He's seen Jayden Danns. He's seen young players win the cup for Liverpool, get the chance on the big occasion. And then he looks at Chelsea and just sees
Yeah.
a never-ending signing of young players with no real clear pathway through. And that's why he made the decision to come to Liverpool, for the very reason you've said, that pathway is established.
Indeed, and I think we have a good track record as well with this type of signing. Dominic Solanke's making a career for himself. Harvey Elliott came in. Joe Gomez came in from Premier League rivals as well, from Charlton, I believe. We have a kind of track record of getting these young talents and giving them that pathway to the first team, establishing themselves, whether at Liverpool or another club. We know that Gerrard's cousin, Bobby Duncan, was it? Oh, not
Yeah.
cousin, nephew, I think. You know, if you're patient and you wait for your opportunity and you have the talent and you work hard and got the ethic behind it, you will get opportunities. And that's what I'm really excited about Arne Slot as well. I think it's kind of fair to let him have the preseason to assess whether the players have the ability to perform the role in the team the way that he envisages it before he really splashes out. Because what if he was to commit to a player, let's say a Coop Miners, someone he's familiar with, a Geertruida, someone he's very familiar with, and someone within the ranks, you know, outperforms their potential and really stands up to be counted. I'm sure Arne Slot is the type of manager that says, okay, you're going straight in the team, keep your place, you played well last week, do it again, that kind of thing. He'll instill faith into players. What would it take for Arne Slot to convince the Liverpool players and the Liverpool fan base that he is here for the long term?
It's a really good question. I've never liked the talk of him being a sacrificial lamb or the next manager after Jurgen was destined to fail, like Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson picked David Moyes, handpicked him, Sir Alex Ferguson knew that United team had run its course and he had gotten every ounce of quality that
Yes.
he could out of them. Jurgen left us in a very good position. His words when he came in were true. I want to leave the club in a better position than when I arrived, and he absolutely did that. So Arne Slot has a very good starting point to work from. Now it's going to be up to him. So I hope he gets the support, because I don't want the reason if he doesn't succeed to be he wasn't backed in the market, he wasn't given the personnel. If his coaching or his man management skills aren't up to it, we'll find that out over time. But I've got to say, right now, I'm incredibly excited. I think this guy is going to establish himself as a really world-renowned coach, and a lot of people are going to be scratching their heads thinking how they've never heard of him before. I really, really do have faith in him.
Agreed. And he comes from good backing as well, because the legends of the game, I know they're Dutch as well, but there's a clear difference between how they view Ten Hag and how they view Arne Slot in Holland, right? So Van Basten, Gullit, Rijkaard, they absolutely adore Arne Slot's style of play and said he's destined for good things. And the fact that many clubs, Tottenham, for example, wanted him is, sign or that basically they had the belief that he could adapt to the Premier League. Ten Hag's seasons have been a bit flaky, divided the fan base. He's got that extension because maybe a better manager wasn't available or willing to come at the time as well. I think Slot comes with good pedigree as well, because he's a winner. He's won more things than Mikel Arteta, right? Or at least on equal. No, he's won the Eredivisie. Mikel Arteta's on the FA Cup. I think that's correct. So he comes with the pedigree of winning things and the mentality. And I think he's the type of manager as well. He's not afraid to tell it straight. So if a player underperforms in the Liverpool team, he'll not necessarily put a hand over the shoulder, but explain to him, this is what you did good, but I also believe you need to improve in this areas, or you should have done this in X, Y, and Z. And he just seems to me like the educator type, right? The tactical person that wants to walk you through every fine detail and make sure that you be the best that you can be, and not just a man manager, if that makes sense. Moyes, probably the old school kind of English style, is very motivating, G them up, off you go, blood, guts, and thunder. But he seems very level-headed and calm and willing to talk through the situation. Do you think the fan base will take to his kind of media approach? Because he's definitely not as jovial as Jurgen Klopp. He's very methodical and calculated, I would say.
It is going to be interesting, because winning over the fans as Liverpool manager is a prerequisite for success. You can't. We speak about the Holy Trinity, and it is true. Maybe at
Yes.
United it's comparable, but other than that, I don't think fan bases have that connection to the manager other outside of Liverpool and Manchester United. Is really, really important for us. And Arne Slot is a humble man, and that's one thing that Scousers look for. They don't like a braggadocious Jose Mourinho type character. They're down to earth, good working class people. They've seen that in Jurgen. They've seen a sincere, great man, a great coach, and I think they'll see that in Arne Slot as well. He comes from another port city himself. That's where Feyenoord were playing. He recognises what the working class people of Liverpool have to do to even get to go to a game. He respects the hard work they put in as a city. And I think he'll win them over. He won't be as charismatic as Jurgen. None of us are. None of us have been blessed with that. He is. Look, I've been in a room with Jurgen Klopp, and I will ask anybody anything. I don't ever go weak at the knees. But when Jurgen walked into a press conference and I was sitting in the front row, I couldn't put my hand up to ask a question. I was in awe of the man. He has that
Or
wow factor.
yeah.
And Arne isn't there yet, but I think he'll get there. And I think Jurgen helped him out really, really massively with singing that song on the last
That's
day. And that speaks to the character of Jurgen Klopp, the man. And I think Arne Slot recognises it as well. He'll know from this American tour what it means to manage Liverpool Football Club, quite how big a job he's taken on. And I think he's the man for the job. I think he's not going to shrink. I think he's going to grow into it.
Absolutely, no, I agree with that. And speaking of building an affinity with the fans, so you've been in the content creation game a lot longer than I have. What type of topics do you think really gets the fans engaged? What kind of videos? Is it the transfer rumors? Is it after a terrific triumph, uniting the fan base? Is it after a devastating loss? Is it a bad decision? What do you find really gets the fan engagement and, get the discussion going?
It depends what fans you want to engage. So if we lose, so I became famous for a 7-2 clip when we lost to Aston Villa. I was losing my mind. I kept repeating the number 7, and that made it go viral. But it wasn't the fan base I wanted watching my videos. I mean, everyone's welcome, of course, but it was a laughing point rather than a joyous coming together of Liverpool fans. So For me, the Barcelona game, the 4-0, it's those moments where we all come together, witness something special, or where we feel destiny, belief. Transfer topics are the ones that people want. You know, they won't admit to it. People always say they're sick of hearing transfer stories, but they click, and they watch. And I'm the same. I'll moan about transfers, but I'll watch every video I can. Ultimately, I think to bring people together and making content creation, people buy into your journey as an individual. People buy into you, your authenticity, your work rate, and they want to become part of your journey. And that's what we've always tried to do on our channel from day one, is build up for a community of people like us that aren't local people, that don't have the uh, availability to go to Anfield every week. But we want to give people a voice and a platform that may be from Japan, from America, from Canada, and make them feel like their voice counts, they're wanted, and they're listened to. And that's what I think has helped our channel personally grow, is we're very interactive. Every show that we do is based around the audience and the communication with them. Um, and I love it. It isn't a job for me. It's a way of life, and it means so much to me that I get to share my journey, my development with people all around the world from different parts. I didn't think 5 years ago I'd be sitting here talking to a gentleman in Japan about a football club that we all love. It is truly
Absolutely.
unique, historic, and I grew up in a time where there was no YouTube. So to be here now, I don't know. I feel comfortable giving anybody advice other than just be yourself, be authentic, and have fun with it.
Absolutely. It comes across, when you're passionate about the job, when you're doing something you love as well, and people can relate to that, relate with what you're saying. You're speaking from the heart. Sometimes, things come out, but it doesn't matter. It's all genuine emotion. We all love the same club. Everyone is building the community together. And I think the more the merrier, right? The more rich content we can introduce in that ecosystem, more red fans that we can introduce in the world. It's growing every single year, the Liverpool fan base internationally. They built an official Liverpool Academy in Japan, by the way. The facilities look absolutely amazing there. There's heads of secretaries running that Liverpool franchise. I will get in touch with them someday as well. When you look at your journey from the Anfield agenda from the early days to what you have now, what's the biggest evolution? What's the biggest change from either how you did things or how you presented things from the start with what you do now?
Okay, I'm about to get a bit soppy for a moment, so bear with me. I was a much more angry person when I started my journey for personal reasons. Over the course of this time, I visit with a psychologist every 2 weeks. I've done it for the last 10 years. And to accept comments, criticism, and love, and to give it back out to people, I found that very difficult for a long time, because I thought I had to be a certain way as a man, the way I grew up. My father was a very
Sure.
physical man, and not in a bad way. I mean, I grew up around hardy men, is probably the
Yep.
best way. And I never felt comfortable. I wanted to be me. And this journey, the content, the audience has allowed me to become me, who I finally, this has been a journey of who is Craig in this for me. And to get to this point, it's incredible. And I feel so blessed and at ease with my life right now and what I get to do. But one thing I would say is, I find in the world at the moment and in fan content, it's the extremes of every opinion that are getting the voice. It's whether you're
Yes.
religious, non-religious, political, non-political, whether you're FSG and FSG out, everybody's going to extremes. And what we try to do is to bring people to the middle, because I think that's where we all live. That's where 80% of us are. We might not agree on every single subject, but we can talk to each other and figure out that we probably have more in common than we think, and that those things that we do disagree on, they don't have to be a black mark to say I'm never going to speak to this person again. So it's just that understanding we don't have to belittle everybody just for if they disagree with you or disagreeing with them. That's something that I find very hurtful in the world at the minute. You know, if you say come onto your comments and somebody disagrees with you, they won't go, "Sorry, I disagree with you because X, Y, and Z." They'll go, "I disagree with you, you're an idiot," or "I disagree with you, you've never been to
Straight up.
Anfield." Or
Yeah.
they go straight to the extreme and abuse, and there's no need for it. It's just lazy, unhelpful, and it's just divisive.
It is true. I think what you get in the kind of feedback session is because they're hiding behind the screen, right? Keyboard warriors, internet warriors at the end of the day, and they can post things that they don't know how it affects people. And content creators put a lot of effort, a lot of research, a lot of time into creating content that's hopefully entertaining and fulfills people's day, provides information, the latest news. And it's a free service as well, right? You create this for the enjoyment of others and hopefully to get your opinion out there as well. I think some people take it for granted that a few words can really mess up someone's day, and I understand that as well. And one thing about the Liverpool fan base that I found is really enjoyable to me is the interaction, right? Compared to the other hobbies I have a lot of hobbies. Being in Japan, I love food, I love vlogs, I love doing anime, or merch and good stuff. But in the Liverpool community, those comments around, I love how you love Liverpool. I love you showing your passion for the fan base. I love your knowledge or your analysis or your hard work. Those comments really, really lift you up. But at the same time, that one or two niggling comment directly, abusive or criticizing you, it can have a down effect on your mood and your day. So I completely understand where you're coming from. But at the same time, you can see your subscriber count growing, your viewer count growing. So you've got a dedicated following behind you. And it's the majority and the masses that are, the real bulk and core of why you're doing what you're doing, right? Because they're watching your videos week in, week out. And that's a big joy, right?
I think absolutely. It's amazing. And I'm so blessed that I've got a great community that supported me right throughout my journey. I think when somebody points out something you already feel insecure about, I think they're the ones that maybe just hit home a little bit harder. 100 people could tell you're doing a great job, but one person could point out something you're maybe a little bit self-conscious of, or you are down and they've noticed that. And they do sting. Of course they do. I always say to people, try to make someone smile once a day. If you can make somebody smile once a day, you never know what that little thing can do. I know I've gone on to streams where my life has been great. I've been really down in my moods, and I've come on and within 5 minutes I feel like a different person because of the love and support of the
Yeah.
people who are tuning in to have fun. And this is the release for a lot of us. Sport is a release of emotions, and it's an expression of your personality. And we're very blessed. Whatever type of content you want as a Liverpool fan, it's available. If you want hard hitting stuff, it's there. Light-hearted stuff, it's there. Podcasts, vlogs. We have a great collection of content creators, and I genuinely wish them all nothing but the best, because we're all in love with the best club in the world, and we all want the same thing.
Absolutely, and it brings fans together, as you mentioned, international, worldwide. There's no boundaries to your love for Liverpool, right? All the way in Dublin, which I've got a great affinity for. My employers are actually from Dublin as well. I'm over in Japan, but the fact that all of us aspire to go to Anfield to see the Reds in action, to see us succeed, to see us win titles, to see the smile on ordinary fans, faces, to see the bus tours. I can't wait till we have an open top bus tour again. I'll try and make my way there if possible. But the fact that something, a community of Liverpool can empower the world. When you win with Liverpool FC, it brightens up your week. You're in a better mood. You're smiling. You're talking with a better tone as well. When we lose and you get the banter from in-house or in the office or online in the message boards, it really, really affects your life, right? It really is more than a game. I think Shankly said it right. A matter of life and death. No, Liverpool is, it's an essence. It's a real essence and a part of your life and your mood and your daily work stream. And I find it really, really fascinating that just a word of Liverpool, a great transfer, a great quote from Jurgen Klopp or something can just lift you up and inspire you. It's inspirational, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Next week, I'm really lucky. I'm getting to go over to Cardiff and Liverpool. We've 2 live shows in 2 theatres over there. And my favourite part of doing these, I'll let you in a little secret, I'm really, really scared to go on stage, mate. Really scared. So I've done a few of them and they really worry me. But the payoff for me is the meet and greet afterwards, where I get to meet people that are in my community, that have commented on videos, put faces to names, give them a hug, say thank you for watching. That's the part that makes this amazing. And to think that, as you said, I'm going over there next week to do 2 shows and meet people. It's what it's all about. It's truly a blessing to be able to do this.
Absolutely, no, I agree with you. You're in a position now that you can influence a lot of people, and the fact that they come out to actively support you, that's super, super heartwarming, right? It's kind of endorsement for your craft, and that you're making a big, big impact, and that you are basically entertainment and affecting people's lives in the way that you're providing the content for them to get through their day. They switch off from work or switch off from a stressful situation to watch Liverpool news, to watch Liverpool content. And me and you, we'd probably be in the same situation as well. When we were younger, growing up, we look for the transfer news either on teletext or on the newspapers or anything like that, and see the big victories and record it on the tapes, in the tape recorders and all that kind of stuff. I've still got Istanbul on tape as well and on DVD. But it's these kind of moments that really, really make up your life. And now you are passing it on to the next generation as well. Your experience, your knowledge of Liverpool and of the players and what's going on forward. And I can't wait to see Arne Slot's adventure. I really think Arne Slot will have a good story to tell in the Liverpool chapters of history. I have a really, really good feeling about it. And it all kind of starts with this season coming up. Guardiola won't be there forever. Mikel Arteta's still yet to convince that he's the man to take over, as the dominant force or the trophy-laden, winner. Man United have their own problems as well. Tottenham, they need to have more pieces to the puzzle there. I think Liverpool will really, really compete. Final note, where do you think Liverpool will end up next season? What's the minimum expectation for a good season to make everyone happy?
Oh, tough question. I think allowing for a few transfers, I'm going to go with our manager and say beat 82 points, beat the points tally for this season. If we do that, I don't think we'll be too far away from where we'd like to be. Also, like to see us progress into the knockout rounds of the Champions League. I can't wait to be back in that competition. I don't necessarily think he needs silverware, but just to show that there's no drop off, we can push forward and we're going in the right direction. I think that will be enough.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. I think as long as we show progression and that we're competitive in the biggest of matches, we can compete with the Man City in those matches against the Arsenal, perform well in the Champions League, show that as a squad we're building towards something. They understand Arne Slot's philosophy, and style of play is visible. That's one of the biggest criticisms against Ten Hag. No visible style of play, right? No direction. A bit, ad hoc at times. Craig, my man, thank you so much for coming on. I've got a little gift for you. So this, in the last video, is my favorite chocolate in Japan. This is a limited edition salted butter Ghana.
Ooh.
I'll send you a box or two. Can you take spicy food, my man? Can you take spicy food?
I can't, but my wife is really good at, and my business partner Connor, who's the other half of our channel, he's very good at handling spicy food as well. I'm a coward when it if I go to Nando's, I'm drinking milk at plainish. That's how bad I am.
Oh, cheeky Nando's. Oh, I missed those. In that case, I've got you covered for Connor, for your wife, for yourself. This is a little bit spicy, but this is tomato variant, nice and mild as well. This is Miyazaki's own finest caramel. I'll chuck some goodies in a box for you. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Really enjoyed that time. That was a really, really good session, and we've got to do it again sometime.
Absolutely, and I'd love to return the favour. If you want to give me your address, I'd love to send you over an Anfield agenda mug. We just got a whole collection of them in, so would love to send one over to you as a thank you as well. And it's been a pleasure coming on, my friend. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm sure we'll have you on Anfield agenda soon.
Much appreciated. Take care, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed the session. Subscribe to Anfield Agenda. I'm sure you're already subscribed anyway. Until next time, peace.